After the tutorial section of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, our character barely has anything left in his possession, and without a single groschen on hand. In fact, the situation is so terrible that we have an option to ask money from a wanderer. While it's true that there are multiple ways we can help Henry get back on his feet, the sizable first map of Trotsky region, coupled with its possible dangers we meet on the road, will not take kindly to our destitute protagonist. Therefore, it's the objective of this video to provide guidance in assembling a starter kit, which should cover most essential equipment and supplies, thereby giving us a head start for whatever we decide to do afterwards. Just a quick heads up that I will purposefully be omitting details regarding character choices and interesting zones not relevant to our topic. This is done so that we can focus on our objective and leave the other discoveries for yourself. Alright, let's begin. When Hans Capon's group comes across Captain Thomas's squad, Henry will eventually join the deliberation and will be required to choose among 3 character presets. For this guide, it's imperative that the advisor option is selected, which sets his speech to 16. The most important one we'll be focusing on. To enhance this even more, the same stat must be chosen when it's brought up during the group's sit-down discussion, raising it by another level before it's reduced. Furthermore, every dialogue option available from all NPCs we see throughout the tutorial section should be exhausted to rack up additional experience. Later, you'll find out why this is crucial. After the ambush and upon making it to Bojana's house, we can now start gathering all free stuff available. In a storage room next to the stairs, there are 3 bandages on a shelf to the right. Upstairs next to the bed is a tailor's kit, and nearby on a stool is 1 marksman's kit, as well as a couple of piercing arrows on the floor. Outside on a table next to the alchemy bench is a weak savior snaps, along with some provisions. Meanwhile, in front of the outhouse lies the deceased bandit, who we can retrieve a set of basic clothing and some supplies from, not to mention his hunting sword, which will come in handy down the line. In addition, there's also a spade here leaning against a fence, as well as an axe dug on a tree stump found off to the side of this house. Both things are owned by Bojana, but they're in our possession until the next morning when she takes them back during their conversation. Unfortunately for her, these 2 items are crucial for the next phase of our plan. So before sitting down to join the others, what we should do is drop them first. Once we're done talking to the herb woman and her daughter, we can proceed gathering the food around their table, as well as both objects on the ground. You can see here that they're not designated as being stolen, so it should be fine to do so before heading out. Once Henry and Hans make it to Troskowit's Tavern, it's worth noting that innkeeper Betty is not the only character we can have a chat with. The bailiff's son will also clue us in about what's going on, not to mention Blacksmith Radovan and Miller Krazel, who have a lot to say. But it must be done before we start carrying the sacks. Otherwise, we'd miss out on an amusing conversation between these 3 men. Apart from collecting information, it's also a great time to use the drying rack across this tavern, so some of the food we took earlier don't spoil too easily. It's a slight reprieve that we're not starting the game empty-handed after the tutorial, because if we check our inventory upon Henry's release from the stocks, everything that's been picked up since the incident has been retained. While we're here, let's clothe our character using the available shoes and pants, then top it off with the short tunic given by Bojana. Now, if we wash up on any nearby trough while wearing this combo, his charisma will rise to 2 points afterwards. And as a complementary action, conversing with Bara will yield enough experience for increasing our character's speech stat to level 8. Furthermore, since part of her assistance includes an introduction about Master Tomcat, the quest connected to him will show up on our journal that coincidentally pinpoints the Nomad's camp's location and will come into play later on. It's also worth noting that she will give Henry a lockpick when asked about clothing, But we're not going to use such a thing. It's not part of our prerequisites, which at this point are already complete. So we can proceed with the next step. Starting from Troskowitz, our first objective is to travel southwest towards Samin. This is going to be the first and last time we'll cover a great distance on foot, because Pebbles, our character's canonical horse, was sold there after the attack, and upon getting there, we'll be negotiating with their horse caretaker named Balatai to hand her over. Due to Henry's speech being level 8 and charisma set to 2, his persuasion stat will be 7 points, which should be enough to retrieve her for free, and all we have to do is select the appropriate dialogue option.
All right, I'll give it to you, but you owe me one.
This NPC is kind enough to throw in a saddle and bridle along with our horse, but we can still add one piece of gear without spending anything. North of Samin and just south of the nearby woods is a rocky formation called Vantage Point. Now if we walk past the nearby tree and look down, there's a portion of the dried mud that's not populated by boulders. Somewhere in the middle of it lies a set of farmer's horseshoes, which will enhance Pebbles' movement speed a little bit. I consider getting our riding companion back to be the most important task there is, mainly because it solves 2 issues. Obviously, the villages and other noteworthy areas around Trotsky have a considerable amount of distance between them, which means traversing in general would take a lot longer on foot. And just like in the first game, our horse also serves as a secondary storage, which is very important, especially at the beginning when our carrying capacity is very limited. With this matter resolved, we can now head back to Troskowitz and ask Bailiff Thrush about what's been going on recently. Among several happenings, he'll tell us about some fresh graves just south of the village, as pinpointed on our map, and because Henry already has a spade, we can immediately head there to start digging. The things up for grabs here are a couple of shields, as well as 2 weapons having higher stat requirements compared with the ones we currently have, so they're meant to be used later on. The light armor pieces also found here, however, can be equipped instantly. Although they don't provide much protection, it should suffice temporarily as we replace them down the line. Since a steel helmet is the most crucial part of an armor set, we're going to prioritize that first. To the east of Troskowitz is Apollonia, and directly above its fast travel icon lies a trail. Now if we follow this until after the 3rd turn, there's going to be an intersection, and straight ahead is a tall rock with a large opening. That's where we need to go. After approaching it, head upwards and turn right until we enter the short tunnel. There's a full skeleton here with a couple of crossbow bolts lodged between the ribs, as well as a dagger on their right hand. Best of all, there's a kettle hat here just below the left foot. And because we already picked up a padded coif earlier, it's possible to equip this helmet at once. You'll also notice that there's a map here carved on the wall, but this is something for you to seek out in your own time. For now, we'll be heading back towards Troskowitz and visit this patch of trees to the west. Within this abandoned camp, we can find a handful of groschen and some provisions within 2 containers. But the reason I pointed out such area is because if we follow this road next to it northwards, there's another very similar spot below the fork that has something important within. The place is descriptively called Target on a Tree, which is essentially a makeshift archery range. On the circular target itself are several ordinary arrows, and there's also one bowman's brew on top of a tree stump to the right. But the most crucial item we should pick up here is a dogwood village bow leaning against the other side of this tree, including some supplies inside the sack next to it. We'll be looking into this ranged weapon a bit more later on. In the meantime, since we're very close to Takov up north, this is a good opportunity for Henry to visit Blacksmith Radovan and start working for him, because the quest associated with this will trigger an autosave afterwards, and we can pick things up from there. Being Radovan's assistant comes with several benefits. Apart from the free sleeping quarters with access to an item box, there are also some recurring free stuff within that we can occasionally pick up, such as a blacksmith's apron, some repair kits, and a pair of rank 3 leather gloves to replace the poor quality ones we currently have. Before we continue scavenging though, now is also a great time to sharpen our bladed weapons, especially the work axe from Bojena, which will be very useful for the next destination. Starting from Takov, we'll now proceed towards the northern perimeter of Trotsky Castle and follow the road which leads from it northwards. Eventually, the map will reveal a section of the woods that's been cleared away to the northwest, and if we go there, the home of herbalist Barnaby will be shown nearby. Our next stop is to the northeast from here, just past these rocky formations. But before we get there, it's most likely that we'll have to fight a couple of wolves. This is where the work axe comes in handy, because every time they get hit by a heavy weapon such as this, its force is enough to stun them momentarily and increase our chances of landing an additional blow. Once they've been taken care of, the area should now be clear, and we can proceed towards the second batch of fresh graves. Upon digging up all three, the most relevant loot here are all pieces of defensive gear to update what we currently have. And at this point, Henry is now reasonably protected by our free medium armor set. From here, we can go ahead and repair them using the kits picked up earlier. But of course, they're still thoroughly soiled since we just lifted them from a bunch of corpses. So we're going to stop by Semin and have a wash. You'll notice that their territory is surrounded by 3 ponds. The one up north cannot be used for cleaning up as far as I know, but at least we can retrieve 1 savior snaps as well as other things nearby. The other 2, however, both have soap just lying around, and their purpose function as intended. With Henry's armor set all cleaned up, we're now going to follow the road eastwards from Semin until our map uncovers a valley to the south. Right in the middle of that is our target, but just like in the previous spot, there are some wild dogs roaming about nearby which may need to be dealt with. But upon reaching our point of interest, we'll find even more remains of von Bergau's men. There's a lot to pick up here actually, not just from the corpses themselves, but also in a nearby camp uphill towards the south, where a sack filled with goods can be found. The most notable ones, among everything, are a pair of rowel spurs, a field crossbow which can be equipped now, just in case you prefer this over a bow, and a decent blunt weapon called Rider's Warhammer that requires level 9 strength, so it's not that far off. In addition, there's an unmanned horse here named Bronca, so rather than letting this creature go to waste, we're going to sell him instead. After mounting and stealing, track the quest related to Master Tomcat called Combat Training 1, so we can easily find our way towards the Nomads' camp. Once we're there, the NPC we need to talk to is horse handler Mikolai, but if this is our first time interacting with him, it's highly recommended that we do so while Henry is atop the horse, because sometimes Bronco would disappear for some unknown reason. We can see here that this stallion is worth a lot, but unfortunately, 355 is also the ceiling of what Mikolai could give, so we'll just have to take his initial offer. Now that we have some change in Henry's pocket, the only thing remaining is to purchase the items we can't immediately get for free. We'll head back to Troskowitz and visit Merchant Jurg Thomel, so we can buy a cobbler's kit for repairing our boots and a wanderer's pouch to activate the quick access slot for potions. Just across from his store, we'll also be dropping by Apothecary Emmerich and get a copy of the Marigold Decoctions recipe book, which is essentially KCD2's healing potion. It's a good thing that its main ingredient can be found just outside, in front of the alchemy bench. And as for nettles, there's a bunch of them growing by the roadside west of their territory, so we can start brewing several of them immediately and be prepared every time our character gets injured. As we take stock of the things Henry currently have, our starter kit is now complete, And from this point onwards, it's really up to you on what should be done next. If you'd like to learn Master Striking early on, keep in mind that passing the required test fight will still be very challenging despite wearing medium armor. Using a new save profile, I found that being on the receiving end of a Master Strike from Tomcat can take half of our HP, depending on the hit zone. But at the very least, we should be able to hold our own against bandits. And even if we get injured during a face-off, one swig of marigold decoction from our quick slot bag will remedy that over time. On top of this, since we got Pebbles back this early in the game, carrying loot afterwards will no longer be a problem. Of course, selling unneeded items is still one of the ways to make money. But another method in supplementing our wealth is through Farkle, provided we have a good set of loaded dice. To the west of Troskowitz is Zhelyev Wagoner's Inn, whose owner, named Lawrence, has a single piece of odd dice for sale. Moreover, close by to the northwest is a bridge, and underneath that is the store of one Karl von Unterbrock, who's also selling a similar loaded dice. What's interesting about this is that their stocks replenish every 48 hours, so by the 5th day, we should have a complete set. From my experience, odd dice is powerful enough for beating gamblers we meet around the first map most of the time, and is a great way to earn additional groschen. The only times my character lost using this set are rare occasions when his throws were extremely unfortunate, or if his opponent had a surge of good luck. It's highly recommended that we get such dice because of some quests that include playing Farkle. From time to time, we'll also get the chance to participate in shooting contests, and this is where the Dogwood Village Bow will come in handy. Judging by its stat requirements of 1, it's safe to assume that what we have here is a low poundage beginner's weapon, which can be drawn back very quickly. This makes it perfect for archery competitions, because the target's distance is not far, and there are 3 bonus points for the participant who exhaust all of their arrows first. Best of all, this is a repeatable activity, so it's a nice way to earn even more coin, as long as we're confident with our shooting accuracy and speed. As far as the main story is concerned, we're informed early on that Henry can get to the wedding either by helping Blacksmith Radovan or Miller Crazel, but the reality is we can assist both. And without spoiling anything, it would be to our advantage if we don't rush going to the said event, and instead prioritize other quests and activities. As somebody who did exactly this, I can tell you right now that there's a lot going on. But regardless of what you choose to do first, Henry should now be ready for it.